This is my 91 Mazda MX-5, and this is my 2002 NB Mazda MX-5 Millipede. And there's a handful of differences, however, there's a very big debate on which one is better. So in today's video, I'm going to go through the differences, and I'm going to give my opinion on which one I think is better, or at very least which parts I find better from each car, and then you guys can make your own educated choice. Some things to note before we start is the NA is obviously quite heavily modified. It has lowering springs, special edition lowering springs on it. This is also a SE spec, so it is a special edition spec. So also on special edition lowering springs, and has a handful of other special bits from Mazda. Since the NA is the oldest, let's start with the old girl. Stock, the NA comes with 14-inch wheels, which are kind of small and have very small dinky tires on them and aren't actually the best for handling. And although the door handles are very cute and look all retro, they are sometimes annoying, especially for my girlfriend if she has nails on and then she needs to try open it. This doesn't lend to that very well. Also, they're chrome. I don't like chrome. However, the interior, things start taking a really nice turn. Cotton seats, not leather seats, however, leather backed. You can see over there. Factory Momo wheel for some of the JDM specs, I believe. So it comes with a little center piece in the same material that then says Mazda, but you can take that off, and then you have a factory Momo wheel, which is really cool. Factory 5-speed gearbox, which feels nice and notchy and really fun to throw around in gears. Obviously not factory, so we're going to ignore that. Downside, very slow electric windows when you try to roll up and down the windows. Gauges are retro and really cool, and you have your own oil pressure gauge, although it is cool because you get both kilometers and miles per hour. Center console that opens opposite to the driver for reasons. And I want to say, I know a lot of people complain that this is in the wrong position. I don't know if my arms are just longer than everyone else's. I think this is very comfortable because I can just very easily rest my arm here, and then I change gears and then rest my arm again. I know a lot of people complain that the center console in NAs is very uncomfortable though. I don't understand this, but yeah. Obviously one of the big major pluses for a first generation, the poppy uppy downy headlights, which mine do, but I haven't got anybody to help me press the button to let them go up and down whilst I'll film it over here for you. But they do. They still go up and down. Well, that's not factory at all. No, but I can talk about factory stuff. Factory 1.6 litre does come in a 1.8, but only the later model years. Very basic ignition system, basically only driven by the cam angle sensor. So very easy to work on, but not necessarily the most reliable in that sense, because it doesn't have a backup if it starts having issues. Fluid power steering, so it still actually feels really good to drive whilst being comfortable to drive. However, no ABS, so not as safe. However, better driving feel. Okay, there's a bumblebee over here. I'm going to move to the other side. Factory open diff. However, the special edition's got a limited slip diff, which now mine has. Also comes with a little fog light. Mine has been replaced with a exhaust. And the biggest upset of them all, I have to use the key in order to get to the boot. Small boot space, mainly taken up by a spare wheel, and then the battery just sits there. It hasn't got its own dedicated, nice tucked away spot. However, the tools do. And obviously, finally, both soft top and hard top. NB2 comes factory with a lizard. Comes factory with a 16-inch wheel and much bigger tires, way more comfortable to be driving on the road, and is obviously a lot more grippy. Better door handles that are way easier to just use. Also color matched, so they're not ugly. However, ugly dorsals. Leather seats, also with soft top and hard top, detachable hard top. However, rattly clips, although I can't really comment that because the NA is supposed to have that from factory also, so yes. Not as pretty steering wheel, however, is still a factory naughty wheel, so plus points there. Factory 6-speed gearbox, way better, and I will admit, this one has cup holders, which the NA doesn't, and I had to go make some fancy speaker ones, and they don't even work that nicely anyway. So I will give the NA props here. I'll give the NB props here. However, there's kind of no point, because now when I'm changing gears, I'm going to knock over my cups unless I'm like this, which is very uncomfortable. Factory seat warmers, factory light adjustment for height, factory aircon, factory demister, factory electronic windows, and the most beautiful piece of the interior, the white gauges against the red car. Cannot tell me that that is not sexy. Also, I do want to just mention this. A lot of people say that the NB dash is prettier than the NA's. A lot of people don't like the center pillar. I'm going to be honest, factory for factory, I still actually like the NA's more personally, but I do understand why people like the NB's more. But I do understand why people don't like the NA. It just, yeah. I will say though, for aftermarket, so if you're getting this recovered and redone, especially like this piece in carbon, NA is by far prettier. I am sorry, NB people, NA's dash is way prettier. Center console in the NB that opens the correct way, as well as quick access for the boot. Factory limited slip differential, as well as a whole bunch of extra chassis bracing underneath to make the car's chassis feel stiffer, considering the fact that it doesn't have a roof. Nice easy to open boot, forgive the shit in the back, but place for tools, and a dedicated place for the battery to be tucked underneath, and the spare wheel. So everything just tucks down so much nicer, meaning more space. Also, I believe that these cars came with central locking from factory, so that's also a big plus, whilst that is like manual locks that you have to gunk gunk. The NB comes with factory fog lights, however, ditches the flippy floppy lights. It's not the flippy floppy light one. However, it does come with a factory 1.8 liter, and then for the later model years, a variable valve timing 1.8, which helps with fuel efficiency. Again, sporting some of the extra bracing because it is a special edition, also has ABS, and then the same power steering as the NA. Also has a slightly better ignition setup, and then it's also picked up by both a cam sensor and a crank sensor, which kind of helps the whole situation. So that kind of leaves us with a final question. What is the better one? Well, no, all jokes aside, I'm not going to leave you guys in a cliffhanger. That, in my opinion, has the better chassis, technically the better from factory engine and drivetrain, if you will, and it's got a lot of comfort features. So in my opinion, this is actually the better daily driver, or generic if you're not actually a full blown, race car trying to do fancy stuff. This is more of a daily driver in my opinion. Hence why I currently daily drive this. The NA, on the other hand, is a little bit more raw feeling, a little bit more intimidating actually to drive, because if you get things wrong, it's more wrong. And I want to say has a little bit more room for upgrades versus this, where it's already got the chassis reinforcements and technically already pretty good tires and pretty good suspension. This was Mazda's first time going around, and I'm going to be honest, you can get basically this whole setup on that very easily, so it doesn't really matter. And then on top of that, if you are looking at doing stuff, both suspension from factory is actually kind of shit. You want a more stiff suspension for when you're driving around, if you are playing, that is. So in my opinion, I'm going to negate suspension. I will give the NB credit for the chassis stiffening over the NA though. That's about it. The gearbox, also credit, and then technically speaking the 1.8 is better to modify, but to the realms of what these chassis are comfortable with, the 5-speed is okay, although it would be nice to have the 6-speed so it doesn't sit at 4,000 RPM on the highway. And then a modified 1.6 or 1.8 would be much of the muchness, to be 100% honest. Hence why we stuck with the 1.6 for my build. Mind you, I'm talking about things like these chassis are usually very comfortable at about the 200 horsepower range. Sorry, it's very hot outside, so I want to stay in the shade. These chassis are very comfortable around the 200, 250 mark, which is what both engines are very much capable of making. The NA slightly less so with the 1.6. So all in all, what is the better car? For me personally, what I like out of a car, the NA. I like a more raw feeling car, and something, if I'm going to have a sports car, I want something that feels like a sports car. It's got to be intimidating to drive almost. So yeah, the NA. However, for a daily driver that I want to be comfortable but still have a little bit of sporty to it and feel good and look good and etc., NB, all day, every day. So in my honest opinion, they both win in their own regards. It kind of just depends on what you want. And with that, that's going to be the end of the episode. Probably not that conclusive, and I probably didn't go in as much depth as I should have. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. Please like and subscribe, etc., etc., blah, blah, blah. You guys get the point. I do want to quickly go over, though, how I'm moving forward with next year. I'm probably not going to be doing merch anymore. Sorry to those who are excited for me to do the Americana theme for next year. It's just, I sold one poster this year. That's what I sold. The rest was just merch for myself. And then I gave some special versions to friends for their birthday or something like that. So that was about it. So merch wasn't working out for me. I did think so, because I mean, I am a very small channel. I didn't think that was going to work out. I kind of just wanted an excuse to make myself some cool stuff. So yeah. And then videos, I'm probably going to put an overlay now. My videos for the past, however, have just been stupidly inconsistent. And it's actually made filming these and editing these not fun for me anymore, to be 100% honest. Because I sometimes will pour my heart and soul into editing a video to get 10 views. Which, I've not really ever done this for the views. But understanding that sometimes I'm putting in 3 to 5 hours worth of editing for some of these videos. The more intense ones, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have noticed my past handful of months I've not been putting in as much effort, and it's because I get 20 views, 30 views. And my biggest issue is YouTube itself is what is inconsistent. The algorithm is so unpredictable, and you can never get on the same page, and especially if you are not from the States or one of the major countries, let me just say. I don't think that's necessarily something on YouTube's fault, like they're only promoting those countries. I think it's more down to these countries just have less exposure, and we haven't got the same kind of budget as what the guys in the States do. I'm sure a lot of people have also noticed, sorry, my arm was getting tired. I'm sure a lot of people have also noticed that in the States, guys buy these cars, build them in like 2 weeks, and then flip them or whatever. And they're starting to treat it more like a business, and that is what YouTube is being more appealed to. YouTube likes that, treating it more like a business, and then that means that us smaller channels are struggling to grow, basically. And there are ways around it, and I've seen smaller channels grow and whatever. Unfortunately, Miatas just aren't it. There's so many channels that have done Miatas before, you just can't win. There are the odd few things that work in my favor, for example, a unique color scheme for the car or headlight kit, etc., etc. I don't want this to go on for too long. I'm basically just trying to say I've been struggling on YouTube recently. I'm happy to still be posting on Patreon, and I am still going to be posting on YouTube. I'm just cutting down how much I'm doing. I'm not doing a video once every second week / once a week for me, because I post on Patreon and here. I'm going to post when I have things to film and post. So that may mean that I may go 4-5 months without posting anything. I may have 2 videos in a single week at one point. I don't know. And it disheartens me to admit and say that, because I was actually thoroughly enjoying doing YouTube in the beginning. And all of this, just the views being so inconsistent of... So, sorry, I just wanted to interrupt myself because I went on a very long rant. In very short, to cut down what I was saying. The reason why I have issue with the view inconsistency is because YouTube, in order to start getting monetized on YouTube, you have to meet minimum requirements. A certain subscriber count and a certain views. It used to just be if you had, if it was over a certain time and you had a certain amount of subscribers. Then they changed, and it keeps changing. All these requirements keep changing. What it has been currently for the past year, I believe, is you have to have, I can't remember the requirements on the subscribers, but you have to have a certain amount of watched hours within a year. And due to the view inconsistency because of the algorithm, it just means that my views are all over the place, which then means I can't get a consistent amount of views, which then means I can never meet these requirements. And I'm happy to continue to prolong to try reach these requirements. My issue comes in where the requirements keep changing. It's like, oh, okay, but now you need to meet 10,000 hours, watch hours, or now it's only 1,000, but it changes like once a month. And I just can't keep up with that, because if your goal continuously is moving, you haven't got a set thing to focus on to try reach. And that's where my irritation with views have been coming in. I genuinely don't care how many views my videos get, as I have explained. I've been doing this for fun and more just to document my own car for myself. Although I do like sharing it with the world. So I kind of wanted to just clarify that, because I did feel like I was complaining about views because I wasn't getting views and wasn't getting paid for it. I haven't been paid a fucking cent from YouTube because I've never been monetized for it. And again, I'm going to be honest, I was actually thinking of turning off monetization anyway and going full Patreon for monetization. Anyway, whatever. I don't want this to turn into another 6-hour rant, so sorry. Anyway, whatever. I'm sorry, I didn't mean for this piece to continue. Have a happy new year and a Merry Christmas. And thank you guys for joining me on this journey. Till the next one, guys. Cheers. Millipede.